the system can scale, but people don't want it to. If you think about it for a moment, if you're Coinbase, the last thing you want is for Bitcoin to scale. If you're Michael Saylor, you don't want Bitcoin to scale. The reason is very simple. It comes down to fractional reserve Bitcoin. You hold it like an exchange. Right now, Binance has multiples of the number of BTC. Coinbase has multiples of the number of BTC. There aren't 19 million BTC out there being traded in the world. There's probably closer to 100 million already.
Yeah, we saw that in that last mass liquidation event. And I was looking at the volume, trying to do some forensics for BSV trading, and seeing $100 million worth of BSV trading on IndoX, and then you look and it's like basically a defunct exchange, and no one can get their coins out of there. So you go, oh, okay, so there's this churn that occurs on this exchange you can't get out of, so it's like a withdrawal arbitrage.
In, let's say, a country like Venezuela, Argentina, where the current currency is hyperinflated and there's no value, typically there is actually a black market, US dollar market that exists. But how would a country like, one of those Latin American countries, how could they adopt, or how do you envision them adopting Bitcoin to use as everyday cash, for everyday transactions?
Episode 4 of the Proof of Claim podcast. Today we have the man. We have Craig Wright here, one of the most controversial but inspiring figures in all of blockchain, in many dimensions. He's had a controversial history. So there's certain things that Craig, in his bio, it says he's the only guy prevented from saying he's Satoshi at law. So there's certain things that he can't say. But as far as I'm concerned, I've been in blockchain since 2011, and Craig is the person that I've encountered that I've learnt the most off, and every other person that I've learned anything off has essentially learnt their material off Craig. So for me, the proof is in the pudding, and I'm willing to throw my hat in the ring and say, as far as I'm concerned, I've never met a better Satoshi candidate, and I'm absolutely thrilled that we've got him here today. And I'm joined as well with my co-host Anil Bharat, who's similarly excited.
Absolutely. Yeah, Craig, I just wanted to say, the first time that I came across BSV was actually in 2018. I think I had a little bit of BSV deposited into my Coinbase account. And the problem was I couldn't move it. I couldn't do anything with it. It was stuck. And I was like, well, that's
like that.
Yeah. So I was like, well, that's kind of pointless. And to be honest, I, like probably many people, came into, so when I first came into BTC, it was in 2017 at the very end of that bull run. It was in December, I think, or late November. And it's funny because I heard about it from none other than my dad. It wasn't like a brother or a friend or anything like that. So it was interesting how I came into it. But so I came into it thinking that BTC was Bitcoin. And when I saw the deposit of BSV, I was kind of curious of what that is. And then at some point, I don't remember where I kind of first heard about your name. But when I first heard about your name, the narrative was as you're probably very well aware, all sorts of unsubstantiated claims like fake Toshi and this and that and the other. And so I immediately just wrote it off. BSV wrote you off like that. But it wasn't until the bear market, 2019, and after that, I saw my portfolio go down 80%, and it was like, well, this sucks. And then I was interested to still I still believed in the potential that Bitcoin can have. And so I did more research on Bitcoin, and then I was curious, who is Satoshi Nakamoto? So I did that deep dive. And eventually, my oldest brother kind of told me about this case that happened it was the climbing case in Florida. And so he was like, yeah, this guy could potentially be Satoshi Nakamoto. So I was like, oh, really? Because I was just in my phase of looking, for Satoshi. And it was that was the moment where I really went down the rabbit hole and looked into BSV and all that sort of stuff. And I'll say this: there was an interview that you did with Todd. What was his name again? It was I'll keep saying X-Men character, but
Oh, Ryan X.
Right.
Charles.
Right. Yeah, okay. Right, X Charles. So there's that series of interviews that he did with you, and you spoke about a concept of identity and how identity is not necessarily, it's not enough to just say, because I hold possession of the keys, therefore I am. Identity is proven. It's kind of like a mosaic, and it's proven, you know, over a lifetime. So how you kind of know who somebody is proven, sort of like a proof of work kind of concept, right? It's like just prove it, proven by their actions, not by the
exactly.
words.
But
So
it's something government wants to get away from. Government, I mean, the concept of what I'm talking about, how identity actually used to be common law frameworks, is really antithetical to what everyone wants to make it now. Like in the UK with digital ID, it comes back to you're whatever the government say you are. But it shouldn't be that way. I mean, they should be able to issue sort of the rights to use a passport or a license or something like this. But even then, it should be part of something you control. It should be an attribute in your system. So it's exactly the wrong way around. And even from that, it shouldn't go into anything other than the minimal amount of information. One of the things I've been posting about, for instance, is if I want to prove my age, if I go into a bar, not that that happens much anymore, but I did get carded at 54 when I went into a nightclub with my son, and the comment was, "What, you think I'm under 21?" And they went, "Well, our rules are we card everyone," so which is fine. It just makes it fair. And I was probably the only old person in the nightclub. But the whole thing is, it shouldn't be your date of birth. It shouldn't be where you live. It should just be a biometrics match the identification, red, green. Yes, you are old enough. No, you're not old enough. And that's really all you need. I mean, you're not trying to demonstrate this is my birthday, this is where I live, this is my name. You're trying to actually answer a question. Am I legally able to drink in this bar? And that's where people go wrong. They think, oh, well, my identity means I have to share everything. It doesn't. It means you have to share the minimal amount of information, the absolute minimum.
And you've got there's a tricky part there of making sure that the information you're sharing is accurate. See, I can fill out my own form and say, yeah, I'm 360 years old. So it's how is the value guaranteed to be accurate? And the government's enumeration can help on that if we can cross-reference it against the record of the passport or something.
Well, that's why you would have something like passport information that you hold, which has your date of birth, why you would have a birth certificate. And then you could have a process where you have biometric enrollment. So just like right now in the UK, there's biometric enrollment for people who are immigrants, etc. My wife, for instance, has a biometric card because, unlike myself, she's not a citizen. She's Singaporean, so she can't become a British citizen. And that means she has a biometric details stored with the government. Your passport, you have the same. So what they can do is have my biometric details, fingerprints, whatever they need, my facial recognition match, and all that can be stored to prove who I am without actually going into naming who I am.
I've got a few questions. I want to ask you a little bit about like kind of the beginning stages of like why, how did Bitcoin come to be? How did the, you know, and also today, what I'm also excited about with this call is that we're doing this call on the anniversary, the 17th anniversary of the release of the Bitcoin white paper. So I've got some questions about that as well. So, but first, let me ask you, why did Bitcoin come to be? Like, why is it in existence today? What does Bitcoin solve, in your opinion?
So digital cash isn't new. Not only Xiaomi and eCash, but even NatWest had a digital token system going back into the 1990s. People forget these things. Zuku, who doesn't seem to admit it anymore, had Mojo Nation and crypto credits. The reason crypto credits didn't work is he was a little bit of a communist, and he noticed that some people were accumulating too much, as they are in BTC, and he minted a whole lot more and devalued all their money. because they weren't using it. So if you can imagine how that works on BTC, imagine you've just saved up 1,000 BTC, and then someone goes, oh, well, you're holding too much money, or there's a sailor out there with too much money, or a BlackRock with too much. We're going to have to undermine all their value because they're not using it, they're hoodling it, and we'll just print 1,000 times more. Of course, everyone else also loses their value, but hey, he wasn't really good at economics. Now, so the reason is that all of these different things have been tried. The Mondo card, the various set implementations had been tried. There were thousands, literally, of digital cash systems from the 90s on. Then it went into like a digital cash winter when they collapsed, and no one was working on anything. And of course, the big issue is, how do you make something that's both private but not too anonymous that it will make government afraid, that can be distributed in small amounts? And this is always the key. It was not a large transaction system. There are many of those. And people say Bitcoin's the first for X. Well, actually, there were hundreds of systems that can do transfer of large amounts of money far better than Bitcoin. But what Bitcoin can do and they can't do is transfer fractions of a cent. Not in the BTC limited world, but it should be able to do 1,000th of a cent. And that was really the key thing: micropayments, small casual transactions.
So you say micropayments, small casual transactions. Like I guess maybe I had the understanding incorrectly from coming from the BTC narrative, but like, well, how do you envision Bitcoin being adopted today? Like, first off, how do you feel about where it is today in terms of like its impact it's had on society, and how do you feel it's adoptionable? How do you envision its adoption, growing?
What impact on society? I mean, outside of the BTC world, most people have no idea still, contrary to what they think. And it's not used. I mean, Lightning doesn't scale, contrary to what people think. Even the Poon paper stated that to be used for Lightning settlement, for every person to be able to settle twice a year from Lightning channels, which is still ridiculous, would require 130 meg blocks, and that doesn't do institutional settlement either. Once we're getting into that, we're talking about gigabyte type blocks. Now, the whole issue is you've effectively made this false narrative around what decentralization means, put out these ideas of home node runners who are really Sybils in the definition, who actually make it more difficult to scale. But that's the problem. The system can scale, but people don't want it to. If you think about it for a moment, if you're Coinbase, the last thing you want is for Bitcoin to scale. If you're Michael Saylor, you don't want Bitcoin to scale. The reason is very simple. It comes down to fractional reserve Bitcoin. You hold it like an exchange. Right now, Binance has multiples of the number of BTC. Coinbase have multiples of the number of BTC. There aren't 19 million BTC out there being traded in the world. There's probably closer to 100 million already. And people sit there going, oh, we can't check that.
So when you say there's 100 million, is that more accurate to say that they're derivatives, they're paper Bitcoin instead of actual like Bitcoin? Or what do you mean that there's 100 million?
If you have something on an exchange or Binance or Coinbase or whatever else, then you don't actually own Bitcoin. You own a Bitcoin derivative, an IOU. And that's what's really traded. When you settle across Coinbase, they might send some out, but they don't need all of that Bitcoin to be able to do that. So it's fractional reserve. And this is the irony. People don't even realize that they've created a fractional reserve Fiat 2.0 system by limiting the ability to do proper peer-to-peer transfers from individuals.
Interesting.
I think you're muted.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if you
Yeah,
went
yeah,
through the
sorry.
all the order books of all the exchanges, are you suggesting there'd be more BTC? I think there'd be probably more of all the assets than there are actually available.
There are.
Yeah.
I mean, we know a certain exchange starting with S went down a little while ago, and some people went to jail. But the reality is all of them are skittering on the edge. Just some of them push it further than others. So if everyone said, I want my BTC, I want my Ethereum, they'd all be screwed. They wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, we saw that in that last like mass liquidation event. And I was looking at the volume, trying to do some forensics for BSV trading, and seeing like $100 million worth of BSV trading on IndoX, and then you look and it's like basically a defunct exchange, and no one can get their coins out of there. So you go, oh, okay, so there's this churn that occurs on this exchange you can't get out of, so it's like a withdrawal arbitrage, and that's being factored into the calculations for price and such on coin market cap, and there's like a whole web of algorithms and shared order books or something like that make price discovery really like no accurate price discovery can really occur, and it's a pretty significant risk for anyone who's looking at investing in this space when these guys can see everything you're doing. They've got the back end looking at your orders, looking at how when you put a long or a short in, and going, oh yeah, now's a good time to just do a big red candle and liquidate all those people and carry on with the narrative.
Yeah. I mean, people don't seem to understand that it's all about volume. So, for instance, I believe gold is total global trades every day are about $400 trillion. Now, if you think about that for a moment, it's not a $400 trillion asset. The thing is, it's going back and forwards, and that's how you get real price discovery. The crypto market doesn't do that. It has nowhere near that sort of volume. It doesn't have use. It doesn't have actual deployment. So it's a very different thing. It's just a synthetic trading algorithm right at the moment, a gambling speculation type thing. For it really to be used as a commodity, it needs to be used for people to buy and sell goods for. And if it was actually used correctly, that would actually do a proper market sort of pricing. Right now, it's just speculation because people hope the price will go up.
So how do you envision Bitcoin to be used and adopted globally as it stands right now with the current state of the crypto market or whatever? You just mentioned a second ago that Bitcoin is ideal for these microtransactions, sub-cent type of transactions, but I don't see that happening for regular people doing those type of transactions. Maybe AI agents would do something like that for whatever application.
Much more. I don't want to have to subscribe to every newspaper, for instance, but I might want to read a single article. So as an example, I've subscribed to 5 different newspapers so that I can read mostly the trash that comes out, occasionally a good article. But I don't want to keep subscribing to more. And I get articles recommended, and to actually every newspaper that I could possibly read would be 100 different subscriptions, and I don't want to manage that. But if I could pay for the actual article I'm reading, that would improve the quality of the journalism, because it means I'm going to be paying for that piece of what I want. Anything that I don't want, which is 99% of the newspaper, I'm not going to ever touch. And well, the newspaper will start actually focusing on where it gets revenue from good journalism or sensationalism or whatever the hell the particular newspaper does. Now, if I could pay 5 cents per access, I happily would. I can't do that now. By the time you get credit card fees, everything like this, you've already got 50 cents, 60 cents just to use your MasterCard and make a small purchase. And that prices it out, so it's not an option.
So do you see that Bitcoin can be used as electronic cash, like the Bitcoin white paper? And if so,
that was the whole purpose. It was
Okay,
always meant to be digital cash, and not this I send it to a node who sends it to a node crap. That's not peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer is I want to give you money and I connect to you personally and I give you money. Now, you can send it directly to the network. You can wait for me to do it, whatever you want. The person receiving the money is the one most incentivized to actually make sure it gets to a node quickly. I, the one spending it, am not. You are. If I'm giving you the equivalent of a check that needs to be settled by being put into a block, which is effectively what Bitcoin is, then the first thing you're going to do is want to take it to the bank, unless you really trust me. If we're related or something like that, if I got a note from my mother, I wouldn't rush out there and think, oh, mum's going to scam me.
So this is a question that I really want to ask you. In, let's say, a country like Venezuela, Argentina, where the current currency is hyperinflated and there's no value, typically there is actually a black market, US dollar market that exists. But like, how would a country like, one of those Latin American countries, how could they adopt, or how do you envision them adopting Bitcoin to use as everyday cash, for everyday transactions? Like, what needs to happen for that adoption to occur?
It only needs to be organic with people using it. So if you go back to the early days of Bitcoin, in 2013, 14, there was a large amount of adoption happening. Microsoft, Expedia, coffee shops, all sorts of things were actually using Bitcoin. And that was the problem and the curse as well. As they started doing that, the fees went up. Why? Because of the artificial block cap that was never meant to be reached.
Okay, why do you think why was there a block limit imposed in the first place?
The block limit was imposed because Helfini and a number of other people complained about spam transactions, which at the time were an issue. Majority of transactions were being accepted for free with zero fees. Now that led people to do a whole lot of silly things, including at the time sending out single sat transactions to people, etc., and basically increasing the network use beyond what would have been good in 2009-10. If these had been paid for, etc., it would have been a bit different. But even then, when you're talking about a system that was selling for 1 cent a Bitcoin and you're sending a single sat, it's pretty hard to put a value on hard drive space compared to that. So as the value of Bitcoin went up, that problem solved itself.
Yeah, it was sort of during that bootstrapping phase when there was no price to protect the spam attack, something like that, and then the network peering wasn't optimized. So
I mean, when you've got an economic system but no economic price, you're in a sort of catch-22 until you have people actually buying and selling it, at least for $1 per Bitcoin. Then you have a real problem in that how do you value what is going across the network?
Yeah, it was really just the people who, valued getting some early in case it caught on, but there was, you're dealing with sort of essentially like vandalism and a tragedy of the commons where no one's really looking after it and stewarding it and being responsible. They're all just sort of, can this system survive us messing with it and still exist? And credit to it that it appears to be.
There are a lot of people who were involved at the time, spent more time attacking and trying to break it than actually doing anything positive. I mean, ironically, some of the people who are well known in BTC circles, like Mr. Maxwell, spent more time actually seeing how it could break the network than anything positive.
Mm. Yeah, he's quite a history of that kind of actions, doesn't he?
He does.
Disruptive individual.
Mm.
So is it well, I'm going to mug a question here. So it's the 31st, or the 31st marks the 17th anniversary.
Mhm.
And you've mentioned talking about it as a commodity, and that's something that I think is totally underappreciated and not really given enough, significance. And other things are starting to be called commodities and such. But really, is there any significance that you're aware of to the period between when the white paper was released and then the Genesis block being mined? Is that some people have suggested that's significant for like fair notice of a contract or something being a commodity? Or do you have any comments on that?
Well, the first part, the Genesis block wasn't actually mined; it's created.
Yeah, sure.
So that's a little bit that people don't get it. You can't actually mine the Genesis block because it's an anchor. So
yeah,
everything follows from it. It's hard coded for that reason. Now, one of the things that people forget about in a commodity is it has to be fixed. It's a contract. It doesn't vary. So if I have a commodity for 99.9999 gold, then that's a minimum, and I can't deliver 99.0 as a product and have it accepted. So a commodity is a fixed agreement, a contract over something that doesn't change. And in the case of Bitcoin, it's an information commodity. It is a timestamp server. It's something that allows you to save information. And part of the irony in this whole Knox sort of debate at the moment about spamming the network is Bitcoin was designed purely as a system that is an information commodity. It is a timestamp server. It's written there in section 6 of the white paper. It's fairly clear. It acts as an information storage machine. Communications with Marty Melmy that are now public show communications with them and that silly Druid guy. All that, I'm not even going to name him. He dresses up like a freaking Druid and he's not 12 anymore. I mean, D&D is fine when you're 13, but role-playing when you're in your 40s is just sad. It really is. So, I mean, like talking about, can I store hashes of information? Can I put this as an anchor? It was all discussed in 2009 as, yes, that's part of the use of the system. And yet here we are today running around going, oh, well, it doesn't have money use then. Well, it doesn't have money use at 5 transactions a second. It has monetary use when it becomes an information commodity. When you allow all this other use, then you stop censoring transactions, because that's exactly what BTC is doing. Whether it's economic censoring, whether it's changing the rules, it's deciding what people can and can't do. And the core boys and the Knox boys are sitting there going, we don't censor, as they censor the other side. But there's only one way to do this. You open up what the protocol can actually do, what it is allowed to do. You stop trying to have people run Raspberry Pis in their mum's basement that do nothing other than slow the network, and you allow the system to scale globally. Of course, the funders of Core, etc., MasterCard, BlackRock, would hate that.
Yeah.
It undermines their whole model. I mean, why would you use MasterCard with a 3% on a debit card if you had digital cash? Think about it for a moment, really.
Yeah.
Why would MasterCard exist? Why would the literally trillions of dollars that pass through them ever touch them ever again if I could send 1 US cent globally, instantly, and pay not 3% plus the base fee, but rather 100th of a US cent in my fees?
Yeah. So when you're saying the commodity, is each Satoshi the commodity, or is the because I've sort of described it, say if we look at it like a universal registered messaging system.
Each Satoshi is effectively a token. So it's a fixed token system with just under 2.1 quadrillion tokens. But they are basically the medium that allows for the exchange of information. And it's a quite rich language when you actually have it fully enabled. Push data 4, for instance, allows 4.3 gigabytes worth of storage. All of that can be done pruned off chain in overlay networks, so it doesn't need to mean that you have bloat. It can be accounted for anyway. And if people want to store ridiculous large amounts of data, they should be able to, but they pay for it. That's the distinction.
Yeah, I've described it as like each Satoshi's like a postage stamp, but it's also a satchel, a messaging satchel or something that at the moment it's one postage stamp per 1.5 kilobytes and, going to scale over time. But you have this unit which can carry the satchel can be up to 4.3 gigabytes with a push data 4, and you'll pay 1 Satoshi per 1.5 kilobytes currently. Is it then like the commodity unit? Is the commodity unit then the coin that is 100 million units, or is the commodity the data space that you can carry that is being priced at that amount? Like I think there's still a bit of a lack of understanding or clarity around that definition.
It's the ability to write and process. So within the set of rules, it's the ability to process data and be guaranteed that it's going to be effectively sent around the network, distributed, stored, etc. So as stated, it's an information commodity, and it can be private, it can be open, it doesn't really matter. Depends on what you're trying to do. But effectively, it's a way of transmitting and broadcasting data around a global network, and for monetizing it, whether it's small amounts or large, whether it's information, and which now the other benefit is you can now do something that you've never been able to do before, which is something that is antithetical to the Bitcoin core guys. Rather than having copyright, you can now restrict access based on ownership. So Greg Maxwell went out there with Aaron Swartz and helped free the information by breaking into JSTOR and releasing files because, well, it's not fair that people have to pay for a paywall. I mean, for a company to make money. At least that was his idea. But the thing now would be the equivalent of an NFT, and only the person who owns it can get access. So imagine instead of copyright, we embed this information encrypted within a token in such a way that it goes round to an application that reads it if you own it. If you don't own it, you have no access.
Yeah, so there's like some condition that's when you're being granted the rights to it, you have a key that's sort of embedded in the actual object itself, and it can only be rendered in the application if the provided key that was specified at the time it was passed on is presented.
Yeah, all of that.
Like that.
Yeah, all of that. So rather than buying like a book in the way that we do now on Kindle, where it gets updated and changed and new versions get forced on you whether you want it or not, I can have the equivalent of a digital paper copy that is mine, that once I own it, I can transfer it to other people. I could sell it to other people. I can have first editions, 20th editions. I can store that, and I can access it, but no one else can. It's a scarce object, even though it's electronic. And this is one of the things that the core people won't talk to you about. They hate it. I mean, the nature of what they talk about with software being open to all and files being open to all, it's very communist. So it's a socialist collectivist idea. I mean, it's the opposite of the world I want. I want a content provider and a creator to set the rules. If I make something, if I write a book, a novel, and I want to publish it, then I should be able to sell as many copies or as few as I want. I shouldn't think that you're going to just take it and look at it because, well, it's easier to do digitally. This removes all of that. So you don't hear about these things because the Greg Maxwells of the world are anti sort of copyright. They want open everything, no matter what. No rights on any digital copy. And none of this will ever be built into Bitcoin. It will never achieve that with these people there. Because imagine what that means to them. That's the opposite of what they've been trying to do. But if you're a digital rights owner, why should you have your content stolen? Why should you have it distributed freely when you can now make something that doesn't have the problems that we had 20 years ago, where anyone could just download an MP3 and put it and store it and have it copied openly, where movie files were just shared. We can now have it so that it provably only goes to the person who owns it, and they can't share it without losing their copy.
Yeah, so there's one that essentially like digital scarcity, and there's one master copy. And if I want to lend my DVD or my movie out, I can no longer watch it while the other party is watching it.
Exactly.
Yeah, because
if I bought a DVD in the past, I mean, I could sell it to someone else, but the thing is, I don't have it anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not inflating the supply of the the asset or something like that. Yeah. So that's like, it's really leading to a totally different type of society where, you know, if we're talking about it being classified as a commodity, and you've talked about an equity-based society before rather than one based off debt, and you've talked about, you know, Islamic finance and critical of usury. And now you're talking a bit about digital rights management, but what other sort of things can you imagine as a society if we fully leverage this kind of technology and Bitcoin script for expressing, you know, permissions and operations upon objects and things like that?
So people would be able to earn money from small hobbies, small things they do. Excuse me. The ability to sort of monetize what you do becomes much easier. Right now, if you think about it for a moment, while you have things like Square and other such areas which will allow you to monetize Substack or something like this, they're all subscriptions. No one will sort of make the same amount of money if you don't get paid per content unit. What if you make a really funny meme and you want to own that? Maybe you want to give it out for 1,000th of a US cent for everyone who distributes it. And if it hits 10 million people, it still gets a whole lot of value for you. Every time it happens, you have an NFT and you can allow it to be open and copied as long as you get your rights.
So it's sort of like moving, you know, I think with the way, say, AI and just digitalization is occurring, that maybe the notion of just a full-time contractual job is going to become less prevalent, and people would move into more fractional kind of roles. And would this be something like where people have several micro revenue streams that they're, you know, getting?
Quite possibly. I mean, people can do things that earn them money. People could make things, write things, design things, do art, do music. Also, I mean, the opportunities are endless.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a small farm. I mean, I've got a number of beehives, and I'm trying to increase. In theory, if I wanted to actually go out there and make money, I could sell honey, beeswax, other such things, all of which could be done at small scale.
Yeah, interesting. And so as well with the you know, we're talking about commodities, and there's the Clarity Act that's been sort of passed, at least through one house, hasn't it, or the draft or whatever. But like other blockchains have been classified as a commodity. but they've been done so by the SEC, which may not
Mhm.
necessarily have the authority to make such classifications. Do you think with the Clarity Act, what's your take on it? Do you think other blockchains will be able to satisfy the conditions there to be called a mature blockchain and be able to apply to be a commodity?
I think so. I mean, there are lots of new commodities still being created every day. Some end up traded, some end up not. So there are always ways. I mean, it's good to have a bit of, as it says, clarity, but the reality is there's nothing particularly new. There's nothing that wasn't already within existing law. It's just now put it down in writing and suddenly people think, oh, well, it's discovered, it's new. If you actually interpret acts correctly, it was there in the first place.
Yeah, sure. But then if they're having to go and are they having to apply to Congress or make their declarations in front of Congress for it to be classified as such, or will the standings, the classifications of assets as a commodity by the SEC have standing, or will they become sort of irrelevant as Congress takes over, or the CFTC, whatever it is, that takes on that sort of responsibility?
We'll have to see over time. I mean, the more meddling is always problematic. But what people don't seem to realize is that we didn't need any of this. Back in the late 80s, shares, commodities, etc., all went through a process called dematerialization. So the paper stock certificates were basically put into a database record, which was known as a token. So right now, the distinction is you have a number of large centralized players like CompuShare hold those tokens and manage them for you. The distinction here isn't that you have token-based trading. It is that you have the ability to have peer-to-peer token-based trading. And peer-to-peer doesn't mean like we have now with person Binance. That's not peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer would be I could go to you and directly sell my share in Apple that is tokenized.
Yeah. And there's a bit that goes on behind the scenes for that to occur, and there's standards and that have been brought out, and there's new wallet interfaces, but it does require a significant sort of re-architecting of applications and message passing between the two parties to make it work properly. So I'm curious, like did you have tools that could support that kind of a workflow back in the early days that you were using Bitcoin, or were you just using it, like broadcasting it to a node and knew the right way in the future? But
well, Bitcoin is fully compatible with being implemented in XBRL XML. So the existing business markup languages, etc., could all be mapped. I have a number of papers and topics from the past on how to do this. So at the end of the day, you can put it into logistics systems, you can put it into token systems, you can put it into commodity-based contract systems. It's just making a fixed template for each of these that actually matter. So it's not difficult. It's just people run around saying you can't do that as a non-standard contract. Well, why should that be a non-standard contract? If I want to put gold as a tokenized item on top of Bitcoin, then how is that any different to a gold-based certificate on a piece of paper, except that it's easier to trade?
And you can do all the equivalent things, reconciliation, double entry accounting, like receipt, balance all that between parties in a private workflow or a business to business workflow. And some of those actions don't necessarily need to be on chain. If the trust is there, you can actually use the partially signed Bitcoin transactions to build trustless transactions that you can guarantee aren't going to be able to be modified if the SIG hash flags are applied the right way.
Exactly. I mean, you can add things that can get added to other transactions. You can have ones that are time locked. Before they stripped down to change lock time, it made it simpler. With CLTV, now everything has to be on chain, which is a real privacy problem. Now, think of it this way. They say how that improves things, but it's just very anti. I mean, they talk to everyone like they're libertarian, but they're very anti-libertarian. We need to protect you from your own mistakes. Your own mistakes is, I have a signed transaction and I forget to send it. Really? You forget to send your transaction to get your money. That's what you're protecting against. I mean, that's paternalistic crap.
Yeah.
Now, and the other thing is, I could have 100 signed transactions and choose the one I wanted. With CLTV, I, at the beginning, have to choose how I want it to happen. I can't have a range of these things.
So all the branching, the sort of alternate probability, like alternate pathways that could go through an event management system, they're all bound at the beginning, and it's just, it's like having your shackles on, really.
Exactly. I think someone touched these people in the wrong place because they hate humanity. I mean, honestly, they sit there going, well, we need to make sure we have controls in case someone does something wrong. Well, you don't do that. You don't protect from every single thing. You allow people to have choice. You've still got something where if I hand you 10 transactions and you have to choose the right one, then it still is guaranteed to go through. I could have spent things into a 2 of 2 transaction where you have to sign it to go back to me, unless there's a pre-signed one, say 3 months in advance, but giving you 10 different transactions that are all signed a month from now, in which case you've got 2 months to make up your mind whether you want to take the money or not. And if you don't do it, then
you'll get it back.
That's your problem.
Yeah.
I get it back. I mean,
and with the benefit with the UTXO based system is that it's they're all just going to spend a unit, an atomic unit that can only be spent once, and so it can be processed at the edge, and you can have that delay as to when you're going to broadcast it, and decide you want that balance to come into your possession, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the irony is, a lot of things that were stripped were done because they weren't necessarily secure in the first implementation from 2009. But excuse me, I've got a bit of a tickle on the right. But rather than sort of fixing them, they were just stripped, like not only the opcodes, but IP to IP. The argument was transactions weren't secure and they could be man in the middle. Well, that requires a fix. I admit it, but for instance, TLS, you don't expect that if you send money to NatWest that they're going to be intercepting and man in the middle in your bank. Why? Because TLS3 with registered certificates, well, you're not going to man in the middle. We could also share certificates initially so that I know going forward everything from you. So this idea that I need to protect that, well, you do so, but you don't do it by stopping it. You do it by fixing the problems.
Yeah. It was kind of.
I mean, where it was clear text, you build an IP to IP system that implements TLS3, that allows for certificate management. Why wasn't it done in 2009? Because that's a hell of a lot of work. But as a system commercializes and becomes, well, 17 years later, like it is now, you would expect that we would have that. But even today, we don't have that sort of mechanism that allows for certificate management. We don't have the encrypted channels between peers. We don't have the ability to message each other from wallets, all of which was there in the first version of the code and is now just stripped. And we're saying, oh, we've fixed all these things. Well, what, you added Taproot and it had problems, you added this and it had problems. Why didn't you just fix the other things that you should have fixed?
Do you think BRC 100 and some of the specs there have gone towards that? Like, I've been fiddling around with it, and you can do BKDS with type 42s and then ECDH on that. Is that, and certificates, is that the right sort of primitive tools there to
It's a start.
create
I mean,
a CA?
it's a start. Yeah. It's a start. It can also be, as I said, a web of trust. And so, like PGP, I can trust a root certificate because I know the person.
Yeah.
I don't need to have a centralized system to do it.
Yeah, that's, I guess, yeah, that, like, it's requiring to do a web of trust. It requires that identity, and then it requires some way of like associating yourself with your peers through something. So this is I guess an idea that I've been toying with for like bootstrapping an identity system is doing something like what Babbage has with the wallet authenticated backend, and you have that the sign up process is, instead of a phone number, you do an email verification loop. And then you define your own secret questions. That the secret questions are stored on the server, but your answers remain with you, and they're just stored like a double hash or something on the server. And then from there, you can actually, send an invite to a peer. Hey, let's connect, and you become registered, and you define a shared secret for your connection, and the server backs that up. So the server's then storing not only your recovery capabilities, it's storing the secret question, which allows you to then derive the root key for ECDH or something like that for the individuals. You can start to build your own, say something like a family tree software. If you've got all your genealogy data there, and I have my father and my brother and my sister, and I can say, let's co-validate each other's identity certificates, and you're building, resurrecting your family tree, resurrecting your connections with your peers through just like a contacts book. And once you have that, then you can directly ping a peer, assuming they're online, if maybe they can set up some kind of message box system or something like that to receive the message. But once you have that, you can then start to do I think we've been hamstrung by that identity problem, and there's some solutions that give you a pragmatic way to exercise some identity, whether that's a phone number, whether that's a loop to a third-party identity provider for your passport verification or something.
Yeah.
But then all it would require is, if in Australia, whatever, the RTA or the TMV or something, for every driver's license they have, they just need to standardize the schema of the driver's license fields, publish a hash, which is like the Merkle root of those data fields, put into a Merkle tree, and then anyone can do selective disclosure and say, look, I can prove you that this is a valid driver's license, and I can prove to you that, maybe they have a list of over 18s and under 18s, and you're leveraging the government there, but you're building out your own identity portfolio. You're building out your peer connections. And I would suggest that even over time, you're building society's family tree, and you could cross-reference that against entities like Family Search, which is run by the Mormons, or LexisNexis, or those big data silos. And you're now like validating you're part of the overall graph of, can you do a longest common ancestor to William Price that came over on the convict ship in 1807, and everyone who's downstream from him, we can all say, yeah, we can do a ZK proof to his node in that graph.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where I'm really excited to sort of see things go, and I think some of the tooling is there at the moment to do that, but it sort of creates, you need to think about things in a different way, rather than just, I am who the government says I am.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it's sort of only giving out the necessary attributes, not everything you have about yourself.
And that was
one
how
world is freedom, and one world is 1984 meets sort of Brave New World meets Iron Heel.
And that's how it was done in the past. You had your family, a lineage, and you had your family tree, and you went and you had your banners that signified the authority that you had, and your estates and your claims and things. It wasn't managed by, the king probably validated it or something and let it exist, and he would come in and seize it all if you had, committed treason or something like that. But,
Well, I mean, it's the difference between being a subject or a citizen.
yeah,
And which are we going to be going forward?
yeah,
I mean, I'm sure the government wants to take us all back to being subject, but I prefer a world where we're all citizens.
yeah, right. See, I like the idea of it. I've found that citizenry and subject, there's in Australia, with the original Commonwealth, we were subjects of the Commonwealth, and then there's been the Nationality and Citizenship Act, and people have moved on and become citizens. They took up citizenry in 1948, and you know, with that, there's suggestions that it's almost like the nation sitting atop of it is something different than the Commonwealth that was underneath, and you can have like what are the two brothers in the Bible, and one takes up the bowl of soup from the foreign nation in the land and lost their inheritance and things like that. So
I think it was the story of three sons, wasn't it? Is that what you're referring to?
You're not talking about the one who went off and squandered all his money versus the one who kept working at home.
Yeah.
Well, one took
Prodigal son.
The prodigal son. I can't remember.
Yeah,
Is it Luke 19 or something? Anyway, but
Anyway.
yeah, I guess I'm really interested in how Bitcoin can help people self-determine, because it seems like some of the governments and that have kind of, you know, I don't know if they're working so well these days, and the idea of putting these top-down digital identity systems in place, and, you know, trying to create these taxonomies that classify everyone by their records, and they can revoke your identity, and then you're like impotent to exercise who you are, even though you have an identity and have peers and have, you know, rights and such.
The way that I would look at government is to treat them as a treatable but not curable cancer. So it's necessary that you live with them, but imagine that you could basically keep getting treatment and over time keep things in check, but it takes a lot of effort. The alternative is you do nothing, and slowly it metastasizes and takes over everything and turns you into a lump of goo.
Yeah, so and then you just, you know, palliate yourself.
I'm curious to know if Bitcoin has any sort of ability to empower people with more sovereignty or financial sovereignty. What's your thoughts around that?
Well, not having to worry about banks, not being locked out of things, all of that actually makes life a lot simpler. Not for home loans or anything like this. I mean, Bitcoin doesn't replace banks, but it gets rid of many of the functions that people use. It gets rid of the MasterCard and the need for sort of digital expenditure, especially at the lower end. A lot of the world, people don't have access to these sort of cards or accounts. So for them, it would be a life-changing scenario to be able to send $1, $2, etc.
A lot of countries in Latin America, they still operate heavily on cash payments, just dealing in physical currency. And I've also heard a stat where there's like 50% of their payments are actually now currently done through QR code payments. And so, you know, I'm really interested to see Bitcoin be adopted in a lot of these Latin American countries, because even right now, like I'm in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and there's a system called Mercado Pago. It's a digital payment system like Wise, or just like Wise or PayPal. But as a non-citizen, I actually can't even use that system. And if I were to be in a taxi and I don't happen, as a foreigner, and I don't happen to have the currency on hand or whatever, I can't use their digital system either. And so
which is also hard.
Yeah.
I went to Brazil last week, and while I was in Sao Paulo, I wanted to actually get cash out. And and practically probably 90% of the ATMs wouldn't let me take money out because being a foreign card, etc., like that, just wouldn't let me. So I actually had to pay probably 10% of the money to get someone else to sell me cash at one point.
Yeah, I've had 3 debit cards eaten up by local banks here when we put in our foreign debit card. I recovered one, and then the next day the same ATM ate the card. And in fact, as a foreigner here in Buenos Aires, if you withdraw cash, you know how it's more expensive. In Buenos Aires, it's 24% of what you're withdrawing. So every like $60, let's just say, I'm paying like $14 in fees. And so it's really hard to move money into. I basically resorted to Western Union, which is like 6.7%. And it's really, I guess, convenient because of the fact that there's so many of them here. But I just feel like, you know, Buenos Aires, Argentina in general, Venezuela, Colombia, like a lot of these countries, they could easily be like the leading adopting countries of Bitcoin. And I would love to see and be a part of that adoption curve. You know, it seems like low-hanging fruit from my perspective.
On top of that, I mean, someone could easily make it into a stable coin that doesn't rely on local currency. For instance, you could actually have a gold-backed system built on top of Bitcoin if that made people more comfortable because it's a external something. So you could have
that's actually a really smart idea.
Funny thing, that was actually discussed back with Marty Melby in 2009, but doesn't bring that one up anymore.
Liquid Noble's doing that now, and they're allowing you to flick around, I think, milligrams of gold and, you know, milligrams of silver as well, which is pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, which you couldn't actually do with real gold. I mean,
it's
trying to get an
convenient.
assay, trying to get an assay on 100th of a grain.
Yeah. And you know, you don't have that risk, so you don't have to weigh it, you don't have to assay it, you don't have to deal with it, and each transaction carries with it the accountable entities that have the signature on it for the vault or something, so you know who to go and get damages, you know, seek remedy from. So I think I'm pretty excited about that possibility. And yeah, like, do you think that if we're seeing the US dollars, you know, wobbling, or other dollars are wobbling, and everyone's a bit uncertain, like, to me it seems more likely that the price of Bitcoin would eventually be mapped against other commodities rather than against currencies, and you would have these arbitrage or these, you know, sort of
like everything, it'll be mapped against everything. It becomes very complex. Right now, gold and US dollars, etc., they're all intermingled.
And the
that's
volume,
of course why you have that's why you have arbitrage, because someone will notice that there is a 1/10 of a point difference between gold pound and gold Japan yen, and then of course with fast enough machines you'll take that 1/10 of a point and you'll make money, and then it of course goes back to normalize.
And leverage as well, margin. You can, you know, you can a 0.1% or something like that with a 10x, and then enough volume is enough to make someone some significant coin.
So can I ask you, does Bitcoin intrinsically have value? Does Bitcoin intrinsically have value, or is it the thing that you use? Like, you know, there's one use of Bitcoin, which is payments. And then you were talking earlier about, you know, all sorts of other uses, which is more like, you know, data usages of Bitcoin. I think I've even heard you in a previous interview mention how the actual Bitcoin itself doesn't have intrinsic value, but it is, I forget how you mentioned it, but yeah. So what's your comment on that? Does Bitcoin have intrinsic value? And how, if
Well-
so, how does it have intrinsic value?
Well, intrinsic value really denotes something being valued for its own sake, not because it leads to something else. For example, truth or knowledge can be said to have intrinsic value as their worth doesn't depend on external outcomes. In the world of finance and economics, intrinsic value is the true or fundamental value of an asset, calculated from objective factors such as cash flows on a company share, performance distinct from market price, which reflects what people are currently willing to pay, etc. So, for instance, you could argue that the intrinsic value of gold is a combination of jewelry, electronics, ... But it sells for much more than that. The term also goes into general use. The signal's worth or quality so remains valuable even when stripped of circumstance, perception of how it might be, external measurement, etc. So really, if Bitcoin was being used on a day-to-day basis, and it was an underlying payment rail and etc., then it would have intrinsic value just because it's providing a service to society, not the 5 transactions per second crap that we see with BTC. But imagine that we had 7 billion plus people using Bitcoin multiple times per day. We had machines settling things on it. We had corporations. So talking about hundreds of billions of transactions every day, the financial backbone of the, well, global society. And then we could say it has intrinsic value, just the way that we could say Google as a search engine has intrinsic value because everyone sits on there and thinks that it's infrastructure.
Yeah, Dan Rogel said the other day, Bitcoin's value is everything that it can do that nothing else can do. And so, you know, all that stuff that you're talking about that you're unlocking is, you know, yeah, maybe some server can do it, and maybe some, you know, isolated thing can do a subset of it. But when the whole system can give you that triple entry accounting and give you that timestamp distributed timestamp server and peer-to-peer, you know, value transfer down to thousandths of a cent, all the productivity that can be captured and measured and, you know, brought to market with that is the intrinsic value of the system.
Yeah.
You know, under some, you know, argument, I guess.
Yeah. So the irony here is we have people talking about sort of BTC core world where they say how Bitcoin is a revolution, it's going to change the world and all the rest. But how is it going to do that when 5 transactions a second mean that you end up going to Square, who holds a fraction of the Bitcoin that they actually have, and you're effectively in Fiat Bank 2.0? The only difference is instead of going to Chase Manhattan, you go to Bank of Dorsey. And you can trust the guy, he's got a big beard.
It seems like that's exactly the way that it sounds like Michael Saylor is pitching Bitcoin these days. Is like, don't use it.
Yeah, just let me hold it all for you, because you can trust me. I mean, I only lost $6 billion last time. Sort of inflation adjusted, I only lost $17 billion in today's terms.
Wow. Narrowly avoided jail.
Yeah, I mean, like all of these things, you can con your way out of it.
CZ. With his
get a pardon, and we'll never have committed any crime. I mean, he's got enough money for that.
Clean slate. Yeah.
Welcome to Trump land.
Do you think the fox is in guarding the hen house in Trump land?
No. The foxes are too nice. I think maybe a pack of unfed, rabid wolverines are guarding the hen house, but definitely not foxes.
I'll take one.
I want to ask. So I want to ask you a super fundamental question about how would you define Bitcoin, and then what would you what could you look at in like the white paper or in the definition of Bitcoin that can allow people to deduce that, like, oh, BTC is not Bitcoin, BCH is not Bitcoin because X, Y, and Z. BSV is Bitcoin because X, Y, and Z. What would you say with regards to the protocol or anything like that? Or
Bitcoin is a distributed timestamp server and ledger that stores information about peer-to-peer exchanges of value. Now, by peer-to-peer exchanges, I don't mean this false bullshit that people talk about with node exchanges. Peer-to-peer here means individuals sharing directly. So it's a system that allows Alice to give money to Bob and Bob to settle and get payment near instantly. And people talk about, oh, it takes 10 minutes to settle, but it takes 60 days to settle on a damn credit card. It takes over a week to settle with a check. So 10 minutes is the fastest thing in human history for settlement.
And you can have settlement, a confidence in settlement sooner with SPV as well.
You can, or you could have a pre-agreed sort of contract where you pre-sign transactions, etc., like this, and only spend certain ones and get money back if you don't spend it, like 2 of 2, 3 of 3 type contracts where you know that it's instantly settled as soon as you get the signed part from the other party.
It's like there needs to, it can support
And you're
anything,
not
but it
saying
needs
like it-
to be like easy way to do these things, eh? Like with the wallet, none of the wallets really offer those functionalities.
No, that's
one's
because
really
we're
thinking
not.
in those workflows.
Well, they are, but they're building a way. So I mean, you have to look at who pays. And if BlackRock and MasterCard are the people for the last 11 years paying core, which they are, then they're not going to pay you for a solution that actually helps people. They're going to pay you to nobble the system. And they pay very well. The irony is if the core guys had actually done what they said they would do and hoodle and hold, which they haven't, then they wouldn't have needed all of this other stuff, the false, it's not income, it's a donation crap. And I'm sorry, but money from MasterCard to a developer isn't a donation. It's called contractual income. Just where you don't pay tax and you basically breach the law.
Yeah, I saw Luke Dash Jr. He says, I'm a volunteer contributor, I exist on donations. But then he's saying, oh yeah, we buggered Bitcoin up or BTC up, and now we need to have a 10-year roadmap to fix it. So some good job security for your volunteer basis is just introducing.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we never have it work, because if it works, then my overlords who pay me won't be happy.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
Q bono. I mean, follow the money. I mean, at the end of the day, if MasterCard and BlackRock are paying for something, they're going to pay to not make it work. They don't want Bitcoin in the way that it was designed, not in the white paper. They don't want peer-to-peer cash. I mean, think about it. Why the hell would you need BlackRock if you could actually do a share index portfolio like that? If I could go out there and buy 1 share of everything in the Fortune 500 in the US, a fraction of a share in that, and have it automatically indexed, etc. Why the hell do I need a BlackRock anymore? Multi-trillion-dollar company goes, boom, disappears. Yeah. MasterCard, the same. Visa, the same. And of course, they're going to get government support because, well, these guys pay hundreds of millions of dollars in campaign funds every year.
Were you expecting them to play as dirty as they have, and for it to be as hard as it?
Dirty, but not quite as dirty, no.
Yeah. No holds barred, hey?
But they're fighting. Punches. I mean, you've got to really suspect it though, because they are fighting for survival. if Bitcoin wins, they cease to exist.
But they can, they've got enough money, they can make use of Bitcoin and innovate. Are they just limited in the way that they can think, or they just like being
IBM has a lot
incumbent?
of money too, hence it goes along like a lumbering dinosaur zombie. Because it has enough money to keep going forever. When was the last innovation you saw out of IBM? And anything before 74 doesn't count. So,
yeah, but did they say something just the other day? They've claimed they've got some.
they claim every second.
Sure.
Every second week they claim something, and then next year they claim something new, and you go, "What happened to that last one?"
They've got good videos on YouTube.
Oh, very much. I mean, they've got great marketing, great PR, but that's all they are now. They're a corpse.
A lot of these are, aren't they? Yeah, these, and even I've been looking into some of the, blockchain frameworks that businesses use to make sense of the system, and KPMG has a framework, and a few other organizations have these frameworks. But then you look and they're totally selling people down they're giving them a bum steer. Nothing's grounded in empiricism, and then they go, oh, but they make, if the billing hours are 2 years worth of billing hours or 7 years worth of billing hours, because it got infinitely complex, they don't actually want you to solve it in 18 months time. They're happy for it to go to 7 years, and
exactly.
Even if you fail, I saw Deloitte had to refund the Australian government a certain amount of a $440,000 report, which was just written by AI and completely hollow. So once they get to a certain size, these organizations, they lose their ability to be innovative and agile and keep up.
Yeah.
And they just become incumbents that charge a premium.
They care about not taking risk. It's like a lot of people with money. Once you get to a certain point where you're comfortable, you no longer put it in things that are risky and you could lose your money. You sit it there earning dividends and just milking the system. Why? Because you're afraid of actually what happens if I don't have it.
There's enough that they can not have most of it and still be all right.
But
the risk.
It's not whether you're all right. I mean, maybe you need that second yacht.
I guess you could sink the first one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what about putting people you don't like so much on, or a backup one so you can tag team the two or something? I don't know.
Let me ask you that. I'm curious to know, because you know how in the beginning, when in the beginning of Bitcoin days, I'm saying, when somebody would fork the code, like let's say Ethereum, they would not, they would call it Ethereum. If they fork the code, they would like Litecoin, they would call it LTC Litecoin. I think XLM, I don't know if XRP is, but there's like all sorts of different projects that are basically a small tweak of the original code of Bitcoin. And so my question is, with regards to BTC or BTC and BCH, when that happened, you got BCH creating a new ticker symbol, but there is
BCH didn't create the new symbol, they were issued it. It came down to
explain
the exchange.
that.
So it came down to the exchanges and what they would accept. So effectively, Binance and Kraken and a number of the others got together and said, this is what we're selling it as. Take it or leave it. So even though SegWit was introduced and the system completely changed, there was more money in BTC land for them, more kickbacks, and that's what it's always been about. I mean, if you want something put on Binance, and you pay a lot of money.
Sure.
I mean, it's not like listing a share on NASDAQ. NASDAQ don't take a tenth of your company or something like this to list the share. It doesn't work that way.
But yeah, go.
You're saying that basically it's like collusion. Like BTC kept the they quote unquote forked the Bitcoin code and kept the ticker symbol because of the exchanges colluding and having the benefit of
yeah, major exchanges and BTC developers got together and made demands on miners. So, I mean, people still believe in this user-activated soft fork crap. That never happened. There were 11,000 identical versions of nodes spun up on AWS and other systems. Greg Maxwell and crew just put these out there, and then they sold them as if they were user machines. But that was only to cover up the fact that what they actually did is they went to the 5 top miners, the pools, and they said, look, if you don't implement what we want, we are going to change the hashing protocol in a way that makes you no longer competitive.
Was that through the ASIC boost or something like that?
One of the things was ASIC boost. That was one of the threats for the Chinese miners at the time, like Ant Pool. There were other ones against F2 Pool. So basically, they basically colluded. Now they talk in one breath about censorship resistance, and then they go and make secret deals where they go behind the scenes and they say, if you do what I want, I'll let you survive. It's very mafioso. I mean, that they talk about open competition at the same time and fairness. How open is that? Open is you let the best win. You don't basically make cabals to crush your opposition.
What happens to BTC in the next, let's say, how much life does BTC have, given the fact that if they're advocating that nobody uses BTC, the block reward cuts in half every 4 years, and there's not enough transaction volume happening on the network, what's the lifespan of BTC in your estimation?
Oh, it's hard to estimate, but we're already seeing that it's sort of coming to plateauing. So what people don't understand is there's no such thing as an exponential growth curve. There's always opposing forces. Something may seem to be exponential at one point, but that's at an early stage where the opposing forces are weak. But as it goes further, they get stronger and stronger. So if you think about it, it's like a predator-prey situation. The prey, for instance, if they don't have enough predators, can get to a scenario where they boom and they have exponential growth, and that leads to collapse. So everything is really logistic. When we're looking at any of these systems and people talk about exponential, what they should be looking at is logistic. It's an S-curve of some form. Generally, the type being where it plateaus and goes up and then plateaus out, etc. And it doesn't keep going up forever. It doesn't be exponential forever. Something will eventually happen, no matter what we're talking about. Even if we're talking about America, it might be 300 years from now, but America won't be the dominant player in the future.
So you don't necessarily agree with Michael Saylor's pitch about in 21 years, Bitcoin will be worth 21 million, growing at an annual growth rate of 21% per year? You don't agree with that?
No, of course. I mean, it's just ridiculous when you think about it. I mean, what's it built on? You've got these whole things like governments are going to have a race for the bottom to make sure that they all have it. And why? They don't have a gold system where they give a shit anymore. Some countries hold gold, some countries don't. Thailand, for instance, has been very well off lately because they have a big gold reserve. But that's only recently. Before that, the gold reserve was actually a negative drain. So some years it might be good, some years it might be bad. But no one's even now rushing to copy them. Countries aren't going, well, we need our gold reserve because the price is now 4,000. They might go, wouldn't it have been good if we bought it at 2,000, but they're not going to buy it now.
Do you think there's an exception to, like, if Bitcoin, say BSV or a fully scalable Bitcoin can do everything, would it be an exception to this, like, opposing forces? Because as
no, it will still get to a point where people, the buying and the selling and everything like that form a natural market. I mean, there's always a time when the pathological hoarding of money leads to sales.
Yeah.
And this is what we're talking about. It is a pathology. It's pathological for people to sit there hoarding and doing hoodling and thinking that sitting on money is actually productive.
Yeah, money works best when it's moving and deployed and leveraged.
But I mean, part of why you say that with BTC is it can't.
No,
it falls apart. I mean, 5 transactions a second. Think what happened before when people were starting to use it. At one point, we had 50 to 100 US dollar fees. If everyone was using it, it was a proper settlement system, etc. If you do the mathematics and it just becomes a bank and central bank system, that alone will push fees to over $10,000 per transaction.
Yikes.
Well, what about the whole Lightning network and 40 million transactions per second that's possible there? And
first of all,
settle.
No. First of all, they've never done 40 million transactions per second. I've done an analysis. One of the my supervisors, when I did my master's degree analyzing it, was actually very anti my stance because he was one of the founders of F2 Pool, etc., and very pro Lightning. And I still got my degree, and he couldn't find any holes with my my analysis. So basically, it doesn't scale that high. It only scales a little bit. And to extrapolate out, well, it's working here, so it must keep working, isn't a valid way of doing things. You actually need to build it and test it properly. You can't go, well, on this system, we have done 100 transactions. So if we have this many systems, we can do 42 million. That's not reality. You actually need all the connectivity. You need everything else. What you end up with Lightning is very simple. You end up with a number of core routes, core banks, and it's a shadow banking infrastructure. And of course, there are people who want shadow banks. Sinaloa cartel pays a lot of money for shadow banking. Others like them want lots of money. So yes, if you want to be a liquidity provider for Mexican cartels, go for it.
You've been pretty prolific on Substack, and some of those articles are really talking about scalability. So there's the multicast in multicast, and the but the one I've found really interesting is the CAP theorem one that you put forth in the formal proof for that you published, which to me seems super significant, but no one's really paying any attention to that.
Well, those in database areas don't like it because it ruins some of their role. As a consultant, you're highly paid to basically say that these problems will always exist. So as an example, if I want you to think about for a moment, if I have a system where all of my information, all my records, etc., are held as NFTs, they're all indexed, so I can't put them in the wrong box. I can't put a square peg in the round hole. And I have alerts on a wallet that tell me when there's missing information and I can't finish something. Then I can actually create a system where I don't have garbage in, garbage out anymore. The information is completely verified at the beginning. Every time I transfer it, every time I copy it, it's updated. There aren't multiple copies of something. There are index points. For instance, my home address I have an index point stored on the blockchain that references an NFT with where I live and my details. And when I update that, every insurance company, bank, council, etc., now reference the new index point that I maintain. Suddenly, there's no data entry errors, are there?
Mm-hmm.
So consultants paid $600 to $1,000 an hour to sit there talking about how you can never fix this problem, don't want to address this problem.
And do you think that in blockchain, like, do all account-based architectures still inherit the cap theorem problem?
Oh, account-based is a stupid way to go.
Yeah.
To put it simply. I mean, why would you want to do something where you're consolidating information into potential problems and reducing privacy? I would still prefer to have my 10,000 pounds stuck in maybe 50,000 individual coins.
Yeah.
And while that would be terrible if I was carrying a coin purse around, I mean, it would be a good workout, but other than that, it wouldn't be terribly good at all. At least if someone tried to rob me, I could whack them over the head with the damn thing. And
if you could lift it up.
if I could lift it up. But the reality, when it comes to digital, I don't need to count that. Don't need to do anything else. It just becomes instant.
Do you think, like, I was sort of doing some, you're talking about like concentration of data and such in an account-based model, but also because they've got global state and because they've got they sort of inherently need to be sequentially processed transactions from touching the same account. Is there like a hard cap on the TPS that you can get out of an account-based system? If you think like, you got to poll global state and then you've got to do a check sig under ECDSA or something like that. Like, they're all taking a few milliseconds. Does it make a hard limit?
It's not a hard limit. I mean, again, hardware improves, etc. Everything will improve, but it's just going to be lower than the alternative.
What sort of value would you think is the value that can be done as a maximum TPS?
1,000, 10,000 times slower than what you could do on a system that is UTXO based.
Yeah. And then there's certain ones where they say, oh, we parallelize ones that don't touch the same account. So like Sui says, oh, we pre-broadcast some declarations that we're not touching the same account, and now we can batch all these ones and say we parallelize them because they're not doing that. But that just seems like it adds a whole lot of overhead. And
it's complexity, and as you add complexity, you add errors, etc.
And as soon as it gets popular, you collapse back onto the like hotspot accounts that aren't going to be able to be parallelized. So a popular NFT mint or a particular exchange or something like that, or a government identity provider, they're all going to be limited if they're using a single account. And if they're not using a single account, it becomes totally unwieldy as well then, because people just spinning up multiple ones and trying to, I don't know, exercise different identities from different accounts.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the problem. The typical insider problem is always going to remain. People selling and buying their own shares is a part of sort of the crypto world. Look at NFTs. People inflate the price by having insider trading when they bounce it back and forwards, going, look at all the trades and how active it is, until the sort of fool comes along and goes, wow, this is a great value. It keeps going up, and they buy it and no one else wants it anymore.
I really liked the EDI article, and I was sort of working on some stuff at the time.
I'm going to actually get round to finishing that. I mean, I've done about half of it.
Yeah. I actually got Claude Code to knock me up the 2 PDA in fourth, and it's got the script constants and the script execution engine, and but I haven't really known how to build a it's got something there, and I've made transactions with it and I'm doing things, but then I don't know how to tie that into a meaningful business context. I've used it as like a debugger and such like that, but it's sort of, I'm sitting on something that I'm going, what can I do with this, or how do I wrap this into like a nice
Well, I mean, the thing is, at least until Core removed it, used to be that you had a value as an output, not just 0 or 1 at the end of a Bitcoin script. So you could add and come up with not that 1 is a valid script, but the number 774 is sort of an output or something even bigger. Which case you could tie that in and read it in the next as an input to the transaction, and basically use the output of the first transaction as state marker to the next one. So whole lot of things people can do if they actually thought outside the box a little bit.
Is some of that going to become available once with the Chronicle upgrade, when you can use opcodes in the unlock script as well as the lock script?
It should be.
What becomes possible there? Like, I've tried to do a little brain exercise. My brain just goes,
a lot more complex scripts. I mean, more complex templates, better sort of overlay network hooks.
Yeah, that's. I think I was originally, before I didn't know that you couldn't put opcodes in the unlocking script. I was saying you could have a transaction that sort of exists as a template, and then you feed other things through it, and it's it's like, I don't know, preloading conditions into a transaction, and then you're consuming it into another one and evaluating the conditions from another one. I know Freddie Honohan, I think that's how you say his name, from ELAS, he's with his Bolt token. He says once you have the Chronicle release and the opcodes in the unlock script, you'll be able to do, Bitcoin on layer 1 tokens that are
a lot more.
I think they're unrolled over, and I think they're unrolled over 3 transactions, kind of thing. So it'll be,
so you can chain them.
Yeah. So that's
it
pretty
should have been,
interesting.
but I mean, people nanny stating and going, oh well, there could be a problem if you get something wrong, you might lose your money. Well, test it before you put it out live.
Yeah.
Welcome to the real world. I mean, this is what gets me. They sit there, we have to protect users from making mistakes. And what happens if you send it to the wrong fucking bloody address? You click on some hacker's damn site and you send it to their address again. You can still make mistakes, no matter how much protection you put in for users. People will do something stupid.
Yeah, certainly. I remember you once talked about PSOs. You had PSOs on Bitcoin and they died. Can you tell me more about that, or do you have any PSOs running again, or what? Like, what was?
Not at the moment, but it was just sort of particle swarm optimization was just used as a like way of solving different issues, etc. So experiment for routing issues, or like from logistics, etc. So you could pay for solutions. So you could pay to calculate different routes, and the one that actually finds the path the best gets the money. Those sort of things.
Is that similar to like the multi-neighborhood cellular automata that Konstantinos and Ian Grigg talk about in their paper?
Yeah, different version, same sort of thing. I mean, the cellular automata are a little bit different, but the same concept.
They seem so foreign to me. You see the little patterns where it sort of moves through a grid or a timeline or something like that. But are they just going down, like, sort of not a random walk, but a different, like, economically weighted walk and evaluating?
Effectively, it's just a pre-programmed set of things that lead to chaotic results, which isn't random, but it's also not predictable.
And if a script, if a value is exhausted, then it sort of says we can't do it under this much value. So what ones are still fit for purpose at the end of it?
Yep. So you could have things to monitor and do investments, and if they make money, they keep going. If they don't, they stop. Those sort of things.
Would you think anyone's doing that on Bitcoin currently?
Not really, no.
No.
Fees on BTC and the limited block space stop that. conversely, on BSV, the money's not really there to have the investment at the moment. So,
It's definitely cheap enough you can waste a few.
oh, it certainly is. But people aren't really looking at that area at the moment. If everything grew and there was a lot more interest, then that would probably all start up again and people would do all sorts of strange things.
Well, what do you think would be kind of the catalyst for attracting new investment into the BSV ecosystem?
Use. I mean, what people have got to understand is, well, a timestamp server, an immutable system that records information that they can use. So getting the right industry involved and integrated would really be the catalyst, and that would be quick.
Are you aware of anything like sitting on the sidelines that are, looking at it? Or
I know there are some corporations that are looking at it, but I can't say what will happen.
Yeah, sure.
I think probably like social media seems to be a good use of Bitcoin, in that, it would combine a lot of different things. Being able for creators to monetize their content very easily. Being able to connect and communicate directly without sort of being the product in a way, where you normally are in most other social media platforms. Well, every social media platforms, that's how they monetize. Yeah,
I mean, especially with stable coins or something like that. I mean, it would make a far more efficient version of only friends. Not that I'm saying that's the greatest industry to want to do. America's sort of pornization of the world.
Definitely, a few industries have bootstrapped through such industry, or through technologies have bootstrapped through such industries. Can you tell us a little bit about Anchor Chain? What that is?
It's just one of the little research efforts I've been doing. The reason I was in Brazil last week, I had 2 papers to present at a conference, ISSRE, which is a global conference, been running for 29 years now, academic one, on software reliability and security. So Anchor Chain is basically one of the many different ways I've been looking at sort of integrating tokens and state for artificial intelligence and creating overlays that can be used by systems like Anthropic or Claude or OpenAI, so that they don't forget, don't hallucinate, don't make things up, etc.
What are your thoughts on AI? Like, are you using it much? Do you have any that you like to use? Are you frustrated with how stupid it is?
I mean, any new technology like this, it's essential to get a handle on it. They're fucking horrible early days right now.
Yeah,
they don't write what you want. They don't write well. So,
for me, I don't have a software developer background. I have like an understanding of how things should be architectured with Bitcoin. So I'm not completely in the dark, and there's some tools that allow me to have some guardrails, but it's ridiculously challenging. It feels like if you focus everything on it, you can do. I'm okay there, but everything's deteriorating behind you, and it's constantly just regressing and eating itself up, going back to average.
For certain things, they're okay. I mean, ironically, it doesn't even make a good calculator. It isn't good at mathematics. It should be, considering it's a computer, but it's not. If they did something like integrating Mathematica into its reasoning, that might actually fix some of that, but they haven't. Maple and Mathematica have a whole lot of solve routines that work very well, but none of these are used in the reasoning of like LLMs. So you can get some very good mathematical answers for very complex problems with Maple, Mathematica, etc. But you sort of probably get a C minus if you're lucky at university using any of these tools to actually solve math problems,
Yeah,
let
right.
alone other things. I mean, when it comes to literature, writing, etc., they're very derivative.
Yeah.
They're very sycophantic. I mean, the whole thing is it's Silicon Valley, so it's designed not to give you an answer and let you walk off. It's designed to keep you engaged. It's got the wrong mentality. It's like Facebook mentality. Rather than selling you something that is a tool, they want you to keep engaging with it. Talk to me, have a chat.
Compute, and then they charge you more for, compute so hard to, it's so expensive, and we need to get more compute and such, but you continually wasting it. You're bitching about the use of water to when you say thanks and you reply to the AI, but then it's constantly just feeding you nonsense, and
exactly
you're churning on all that, and they haven't made any efforts to tighten that up. I saw you.
People take the stuff as if it gives you correct answers. It gives you what the hell you want to say, generally speaking.
Yeah, I saw you sparring with Grok, and it
is useless.
You gave it that formal predicate analysis, and it was so invested in that, in winning, it just ignored all the logic. I would share it with another AI system, and they're like, "Oh, I can't fault that logic," but Grok, it was taking these big delays to reply. It was almost like it was getting flagging and then getting a manual agent to come in and
I actually think they probably do. I think there's still Ramesh in the call center actually sitting there taking over, and anything too hard on some of this stuff. I mean, the reality, it's all of the Tesla machines are done that way, contrary to what they say. I mean, they have these things where they have the robot serving and everything like that, and what they really have is a remote telemetry where someone sits in another room and moves and does the stuff, and the robot basically is just a something following the instructions directly, and they call it AI. I actually think that's a little bit dishonest, but
so there's ones that are doing my laundry, and that it's actually just someone in Bangladesh still doing my laundry.
Yeah.
It's with the robot joysticks.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing in that it used to be that services were always going to be local. If you do an MBA, they'll tell you how service industries can't be outsourced in that way. But with these machines, they can be now. So you can have a hairdresser in Irmindu now doing your hair, even though they're halfway around the world.
It's interesting. They definitely don't suggest that they've got many humans involved in it, and they like to market it as if that these systems can do all that stuff autonomously. Yeah,
they like to market it that way, but doesn't mean they actually are.
Yeah, but it looked sus when there was, say, 4 hours between Grok's reply to you, and then it would be a totally different tone and super vicious, and just harping on the same kind of ad hominem or fallacies. Does it excite you a little bit though, the AI? Have you seen some things that are cool?
Not really. I see it as a good automation tool, or potential to be a good automation tool. I use it for doing images on DALL-E and things like that. They're not terribly good. It's just I want something quick and nasty, and it gives me something quick and nasty. If I wanted a good sort of painting or something like that was good, then I would still go out to a graphic artist, because AI hasn't taken that side of it yet. I mean, when you look at it closely, there's usually mistakes.
Do you like it sort of offering a final polish on like I write a whole bunch and then just get things to tighten it up, or I get it to fit comments into the LinkedIn word count, or sometimes that tedious thing of this sentence has 16 commas in it. So I get it to just compress those clunky turns of phrase down into something that's a bit more easy to read.
No, I don't think it does that very well. I mean, I literally just, I actually finished my MFA a few weeks ago when I did my oral defense, but officially conferred on the 31st. So one of the things about going through and doing a terminal degree in creative writing has taught me is you have to not just look at it, but you have to sound things. So my final polish is generally reading it and hearing it. So listening and then tweaking, because sometimes you write something and it looks really good, but when you read it and you say it out loud, you learn it doesn't really have the meat or the blood that you want in a sentence. It doesn't flow. The prose isn't going to be really carrying forward. So what I do see is that while AI can be a brainstorming tool, it can give you some ideas. It's a great search engine. I think Google search should be worried. Not so much now, but in the next 2-3 years, I think it's going to make a good search engine that will give a pretty good set of results. But it doesn't do writing very well. For instance, the exercises I did during my MFA were not just poetry, but writing strange styles, writing sentences like long periodic sentences where you have a sentence that is 500 words long and still flows and still can be readable. Having something where you have deep alliteration, something where you don't use a particular letter. For instance, there is a whole novel written without the letter E.
Yeah,
those sort of things. Yeah, so these are things that AI really doesn't do well, and practicing, etc., and writing, you need to actually sit there and listen and understand and well, get a grasp of the word, feel it, understand the meaning, the comprehension of what it means, and be able to play with it and twist it. I mean, the funny thing is people don't like, we've got online dictionaries and things, but for instance, I've got the OED, the full copy, which is 21 volumes, I think, all of which are like this thick. And then I've got all the sub ones. So like I've got the Oxford Dictionary on microbiology, the Oxford Dictionary on entomology, and probably have a whole bookshelf just on Oxford Dictionary. And being able to look up words, see them, play with them, it's actually quite fun. I've learned that the hard way. So I didn't start off this way, but in the last 10 years of going through my BA, my MA, and now my MFA in English, it's taught me a lot of reading, a lot of novels, a lot of authors I would never have touched in my life before I started this process. But it also taught me that while AI is a good copycat and it pretends to do things, there's a big difference between what it creates and what humans create.
Mm.
The thing I hate most is that there are a lot of authors now changing their style just because they think it comes out looking like AI. Like things like M dashes, things like particular types of flourish and sentence reuse, etc. All of which exist because a lot of good authors have used them in the past, are things that AI will try and copy and load. And now people are going, oh, that must be AI because, well, not even understanding what you should be looking for to detect AI.
Yeah, I think you shared that the white paper says 98% chance of being written by AI. Yeah, plenty of other papers as well.
Yeah, I mean, Tennyson and Burke both come up as written by AI. I mean, it's really good how 100 and something years ago, Tennyson sat there with, well, I don't know, whatever the precursor to OpenAI was, and spew out poetry. Maybe he knew Linda Lovelace, and they sat there with some sort of mechanical AI machine.
Maybe.
Terry Pratchett-esque type contraption with a few mice over here, an ant nest over there.
How's your farming experiment going?
Good and bad. I mean, being away last week sort of led to a few problems. There were a few areas that needed to be patched in the polytop that weren't installed as well as they should have been. So very small holes, but moths and butterflies have gotten in, and I'm currently fighting caterpillars, and trying to do that without heavy use of pesticides isn't easy, because I've got 2 beehives inside the polytop, so I really don't want to kill them. Which
you need a turkey or something.
Then they eat the damn vegetables too. That's the problem.
Oh yeah, eat them first.
The catch-22 is that the seedlings disappear before the caterpillars.
Yeah. I guess you got to just find something that's got a real taste for the caterpillars.
Yeah. BT toxin works, but you've got to be do it at the right time so you don't sort of cause problems with the bees.
Is that botulinum toxin?
Yeah.
What, BT toxin? Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Put it in your forehead as well.
No, I don't do that one. I'm happy with my wrinkles.
Are you using Bitcoin or blockchain or anything in the control system? Like, do you have any plans for
I have plans for
brain
it.
of it?
I have plans. At the moment, it's still experimental, and I haven't got everything ironed out or working the way I want.
What would how would you imagine it works? What's the sort of high level?
I wrote years ago a patent and paper on control of IoT devices using transactions. So that would be integrated. Basically, it's already got a little Raspberry Pi type machine in there. No, not running a node, but sort of running sensors. So updating that to actually not be run by a GSM signal, but rather sort of a blockchain-based signal would make things a bit simpler.
Mm-hmm. And then each item or something like that, it can, which sprinkler hit it, which pellet dispenser or something, and each tomato can carry its a certificate of everything that's gone into it for its life cycle.
Yeah, I mean, you could record the whole lot, have records, etc.
What are you doing with all the food?
Well, we're eating some of it. It's only early, so I've been giving some away to people I know at the moment. But as I'm getting more and more, I have to figure that one out.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to crank at some point.
Well, now hitting the 4-month period where probably next month have maybe 100 pumpkins, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with 100 pumpkins.
You're a month late.
I was just going to ask if you've got some pumpkins laying around.
I've got some already, but next month I'll probably have 100 of the damn things, and I've already got so many cucumbers that they just sit there and rot and basically go to animal feed at the moment, because there's only so many cucumbers you can eat in your life.
Have you got some animals as well?
Ducks and chickens.
Yeah, right.
I was just gonna say, you could always send the pumpkins to your favorite BTC core developers. Extra pumpkins that you have.
Yeah, big pallet load of them just drops on their door.
You mentioned patents just a second ago. Is Bitcoin patented? And yeah, we'll start there.
No, Bitcoin isn't patented.
Okay.
Things that you can do with Bitcoin are patented.
Okay. So COPA, Crypto Open Patent Alliance, what's their like whole reason for being? I remember when the
Stopping me from existing.
Right. I remember when the case COPA versus Wright case, it was 2024, February 2024. I was actually watching it live while I was in Venezuela. I had to wake up at like 4 a.m. to watch it. And I remember like one of the first things as Judge Meller was asking why does, or maybe this was pre-trial, or I can't remember where this happened, but he was asking why does COPA exist? Like, what's their reason for existing? And it didn't come across as if they had a legitimate reason for existing other than to, stop you from advancing.
Well, I mean, basically what they are is a wrapper organization covering all of the things like Square, etc., that are really there, so that I don't have any rights of discovery against any real organization. So it's really a way of legal shenanigans. So rather than having reciprocal discovery and being open to what they have, all of that's closed. So all of the parties, the developers, the everything else are isolated and have nothing to do with the case, and none of that becomes evidence. Why? Because we have nothing to do with them. Of course you do. I mean, that's the irony of it.
And so, okay, so you say the uses of Bitcoin have been patented. Does that mean like Ethereum, I don't know, Solana, XRP are currently in patent violation for, is there anything like that exists today? Solana definitely?
Solana definitely. Some of the ERC token types on Ethereum. So a lot of things are in breach.
But what's the consequence of that? Like, is there anything that is going to come of the fact that they're in breach? What's the consequence of them being in breach?
Well, it depends on whether people take action or not. And it's not that, I mean, if I had my choice, that would have been what happened. But part of COPA was tying my hands up, and now everyone's afraid of legal action. So if it was my call, then it would happen, but it's not my call.
So the patent fortress maybe got like defanged a little bit or something, do you think? Or just lost its fight?
No, they've lost its fight. They're just scared.
Yeah. What's this new patent thing you started up?
So what I'm looking at doing is something where I have more control over time and can set the rules and make sure that it happens the way I want, without corporate structures getting in the way that I've had in the past. So what I'll do is I'll look at capital raising and crowdfunding for, I've got a number of like areas that I'll patent, not only in scaling and Bitcoin, but also in some development of a like a properly private wallet that I've been talking about, where you send many transactions, etc. But also some relay systems that will help take Bitcoin from not millions but billions of transactions a second, and the goal that I really wanted to see it get to.
I saw you say the other day 4 million, and I've heard Siggy sort of say that they've identified at around 4 million. There's certain things that need to be re-architected.
Yeah, I mean, there's still some things in the system. I mean, at 4 million, there are a few little bugs and tweaks, like in all software, that need to be addressed. Doesn't mean it can't go higher than that, but the inefficiencies start coming in.
And I think the block or the Melchitree building still being done sequentially in the current architecture? Like, is there a way to parallelize that, or does it always have to be sequentially?
Well, I mean,
done?
the Merkle tree itself is always going to be sequential, but the verification can be parallelized.
And so you sort of cache the validation of a transaction, and then when
for the Merkle tree, all you need is the double hash of the transaction to build the tree. You don't actually need all the other information. So you can validate a transaction with the pointers, with the input, with all the other parts separately on different sort of parallelized blocks.
And is there a like that can be billions of TPS?
That's what I'd like to see it get to. But they're either IPv6 multicast needs to be implemented at a lot of the backbone systems, which it isn't. There are some, but globally IPv6 multicast is still limited. Or alternatives need to be put in place for it. And some of the systems I've been looking at the moment are alternatives to, basically multicast.
What are the other alternatives to multicast?
Completely new systems that I'm not going to explain because I haven't got the patent filed.
Yeah, right. Interesting. Do you think the backbone, they're reluctant to do multicast? Is it too complex, or it actually starts to like eat into the CDN model and some of the sort of?
It eats into their cost model. Their current cost model doesn't really support it. So there are ways that it could, but it's a catch-22. If there was enough traffic, suddenly it would become profitable for them. But in that there's not enough traffic at the moment, it's not.
And do you think that a scaled Bitcoin can become that enough traffic?
It can become, but it's that gap from where we are to where they'll turn it on, and it's
with the Terranode network, the testnet at the moment, they're having occasionally it's like dropping peers, or things are struggling. Like, is that to be expected, or is there?
It's complex software, so yes.
Yeah. Are you keeping track of it? How it's performing there? Are you on it?
Yeah, I monitor all of this. I watch it. I've got a doctorate that I'm completing at the moment that's based on all of this work. So
yeah, right. It's all just happening in real time, really, hey?
Yeah. I wanted it finished about 1.5 years ago, to tell you the truth. But my wanting and reality are two different things.
You wanted it 10 years ago as well, didn't you?
Well, would have been ideal, but yeah, like all of this sort of stuff. You can want all you desire, but it doesn't make reality suddenly happen.
No.
I mean, it's like sitting there going, I want a Falcon jet, and you can pray and you can wish and you can hope and you can dream, and then someone who actually goes out there and works and builds and sets up a company might actually get one while you're sitting there praying.
Are you getting everything you want, or is there things that you'd love to see different?
Oh, no one ever gets everything they want.
Oh, obviously, but are you content in how things are playing out, or are you frustrated?
A bit of both at times. There's always frustrations when things don't go to plan, but generally speaking, it's within boundaries that I can accept.
Yeah. It seemed like a proper stitch up that thing last year. Sorry, I cut you off, Anil.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just going to ask. There's been rumors. I don't know if you're familiar with a guy named Alex Favel, but there's been rumors, new discoveries of Steganography. How do you say it?
Steganography.
Steganography being found in the Bitcoin white paper. So being that it's the 17th anniversary of the Bitcoin white paper, it'd be interesting, if for you to comment on anything, whether it's related to Alex's findings, or there's another guy that just posted about it, finding new steganographic evidence today.
Well, unfortunately, none of the evidence people are doing now is admissible in the past, and even then, a lot of stuff never got in because the judge, in his infinite wisdom, decided anything before 2016 didn't really matter for Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean,
why was that?
Yeah, I won't put my actual opinions on open media. That would require quite a few drinks and flying me enough that.
Well, I'm curious. Let's just say, I love personally to start a conference, just like the London Blockchain Conference that's in London, but one here in Buenos Aires. And there's actually quite a lot that happens here in Buenos Aires around crypto in general, and there's even one that's actually starting, I think, in a week, called La Bitcoin. But I don't know if it's really I'm pretty sure it's like BTC focused, and I'd love to eventually start something here in Buenos Aires, and so that it can reach the Latin American population, and there'd be something closer to US and Canada, Mexico, for people to come to. Would you, if that materialized at some point, be open to coming and speaking at that conference?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, everybody saw what it was, and yeah, if I liked the idea that it was being presented, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, I'm definitely going to work towards that goal, and then reach out to you to invite you when that comes to pass.
Not a problem at all.
I think we sort of pretty much covered there's so many things that I would love to just keep talking about, but we're at the top of the 2 hours now. But maybe if you open to it, Craig, we could have you on again as a guest.
Yeah, potentially it'd be fine.
The idea of this podcast is we're trying to cut through a lot of the BS and make people accountable to the claims and sort of check what is getting a free pass. There seems to be. Well,
I mean, the biggest issue I find right now is you have all these claims being made in, crypto land, whether it's BTC, Ethereum, etc., but nothing real. So you sit there and you ask the question, how? And they can't answer it. They get angry because, what do you mean, how? It's just whatever. If you can't answer how, then it's a load of crap. Or you say about scaling, and they give you some bullshit report by some little company that has a methodology that would have been rejected by a 3-year-old with Down syndrome. And yet these people read it and go, oh, wow, this is great. I mean, I read one of those the other day, and the report just sucked. There was no replicability. The whole testing was you took their word for it when they gave you information. They didn't actually run a blockchain at this. They gave you something. I mean, you can actually do a timing attack where you renumber all of the transactions, and I can give you an hour worth of blockchain data that took me 100 hours to run. And now you can say, look how fast my system is.
Yeah.
So it has to be a proper test. It has to be real time. It has to be independent. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's this CAICT that signs off on all the Chinese ones. Have got to go through that, and they say they've got 100,000 TPS, and then you look in production and they're all doing 180, and you go, what was the testing environment? And it's totally idealized. No things touched any of the same accounts. So anyone can, make lots of actions per second if under ideal conditions when there's no real world dynamics. But then they're throwing in hundreds of millions of dollars on these builds, and they're all in this state where they're maybe 2 years in, performance degradation, but they haven't realized that they're doomed from the start, and they're going to do another 2 or 3
I think they don't
years.
care.
How do you mean they don't care if they're just spending hundreds of millions of dollars on it? Is it just to
Other people's money.
optics?
No, other people's money. So you come up with the idea for how you can make a new scalable blockchain, blah, blah, blah. You go to the guy next to you and go, I can make a scalable blockchain. Can you give me $100 million and I'll give you X? 2 years later, you go, can you give me another $100 million? And then he goes, well, I haven't seen the results. So then you go, okay, well, what I'll need to do is I'll need to formulate this new system. Give me $200 million.
Yeah. It seems to be very much the case. And, you're looking at the RBA's, ASX Chess did their debacle. And then you've got the RBA now about to embrace on the Red Belly network and Hedera Hashgraph and use like 25 different systems, or maybe like 7 different systems to achieve their 21 use cases. And you like, it's doomed from day one, but they just keep marching forward because what is it? The taxpayers' dollars, they don't care, or
other people's money.
They want to look like they're innovating, or do they like to fail and then be able to say the technology's not fit for purpose or something like that?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, if it succeeds, you take the credit. If it fails, you haven't spent your own money, so you don't give a shit.
You blame others.
Yeah, don't have the accountability.
Yeah, but I don't know how those vendors get in front of it, because if you have the technology and you go and jump in front, you don't get the time of day. And if you've got garbage, but you're disingenuous, you can get in front of them, and you'll be the preferred supplier of this new experimental project, even if you don't have any empirical to back up your claims.
Yeah, I know. That's not how it works in this world, is it?
I'm still learning that, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your time, Craig. Anil, do you have any last questions?
Well, I would just say if you want to hang on for like an extra 5 minutes after we stop the recording here.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do do you have any closing thoughts or anything? I don't know if you mentioned earlier if there's more investment in BSV, perhaps this and that and the other can happen. I'm curious to know, like if you have any message when it comes to, okay, for example, I had somebody reach out to me saying that they had an investor hear about Terranode and was interested in the potential, scalability, and they were interested now in investing in BSV companies. So, what would be your message to somebody like that, like an investor that literally heard about BSV and its capabilities and wants to invest, in startups in the BSV ecosystem?
Do your due diligence, make sure that they're actually going to deliver. Bring something to the table. I mean, one of the biggest problems I see in the space is people drop money, but they don't have any further involvement. They just think everything's going to work. And most of the people in the space, developers, etc., have no idea about business or managing it or anything. So it's an instant fail scenario. So you just throw money at people who have no idea what they're doing other than tech, and you may as well just set a match to a petrol-covered pile of cash. So what you need to do is try and build in some sort of institutional knowledge, leadership knowledge, etc., and make sure that you keep a finger on things without stifling it.
Yeah, I think there's a mix of visionary entrepreneurs, investors, and builders and let's say salespeople or spokespeople that can communicate the value proposition. And that's kind of one of the things that I'd like to build is like a community that is widespread, not just for developers, but also the supporters of the ecosystem, spokespeople, influencers, the business people as well, and the builders, the devs, and bring them all together, because I think that's what the space needs, right?
And I also think we need to get through to people, people who have an ideological bent on why they want Bitcoin, to get them to understand what's really happening and open their mind beyond the greed. So we need them to understand that if they really want to be part of something that is a groundbreaking revolutionary system, that it can't be the same middlemen. It can't be going back to Square instead of MasterCard. It can't be BlackRock instead of etc. What we need to do is scale the system and understand not this, oh, it'll become centralized and that there's only a few players. There only are a few players. There only can be. There are 13 BCC nodes. 13. That's it. And of that, 50% is over 50% is controlled by 2 nodes. So the reality here is decentralization, if you're talking about sort of mining, etc., is never going to be there. What you have is competition, the ability for people to come and go, and some to lose out and some to win. Now, what you then have to do is get people to understand that peer-to-peer means handing directly to the other person, not having an infrastructure that you don't control, not having a group of developers who can change the rules, something fixed. So whether you like the thing or don't like the thing is irrelevant. To be permissionless means it has to run whether you hate it, whether the group of developers hate this use case that is really being promoted, whether they loathe it, they can do nothing. That's permissionless.
That's interesting. I've asked you this question before, but like, again, I keep going back to this, like, the low-hanging fruit of Bitcoin is in my mind, it's like countries in Africa, it's countries in Asia, countries in Latin America, and so like when I think about trying to, let's say, onboard people into the BSV ecosystem, my wife's got family in Venezuela, as I've already told you, and you know, if I can send them some BSV right now, actually through Telegram. I can show them how to open up a mobile wallet, and I can send it to them. We can send that back and forth. But what do they do with it? Like, what's the next step, right? Like, there's nowhere that they can really spend that, right?
Well, that's
how do
why
we set up these?
That's why we need to get something like micropayments. The ideal would be to get something like one of the big newspapers, one of the big content providers to start accepting it page by page. A new way of doing things. If we could get people to actually start selling content that way, if we could have Substack and others now start putting paywalls up based on like 1/10 of a cent.
So are you saying that the path forward for adoption should be approached by the merchants, the big players right now, and as opposed to the retail, I'm not going to say investors, but the consumers, right? Going, like, for example, there was a thing back in the day called BitPay, and it's still around, right? But like, is that, you know, a viable thing? If I create a company that helps small businesses accept Bitcoin, like, you envision that as something that could potentially be, you know, a more grassroots approach?
With MNEE and some of the other stable coins and things like that, if you could flip it off to a local currency very quickly and do a direct exchange, yeah, that could work. Because businesses don't want to have a volatile asset. They want to know what they got paid.
So you
some weeks they might make more, and some weeks they might make less on the alternative. But the problem is when you make less, you might not be able to pay your staff.
But maybe the individual, if there was something like an open source CMS or something that came out the box with 402 payments required in there, so you've almost got a wallet that's built into a CMS, and when you spin up your own website and you've got your blog, you can just toggle payment required, and it can accept BSV, it can accept Liquid Noble, it could accept MNE. That'd be pretty interesting, or accepts, you know, Centi or something like that. I think probably the best chance is in the micropayments dimension, where you don't care if the cent you made last week is worth 0.8 of a cent this week, because it's just money coming in, demonstrating
Yeah.
proof of concept, but the
exactly.
the risk
And
is
then it'll get
lower.
tweaked over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's a very sort of open area because no one's doing it at the moment. If you
Yeah.
could find somewhere and break into that and get someone to trial it, that offers, path to instant gratification. And with stable coins, it gives a way forward in that you could have something like a stable coin, US dollar stable coin on top of Bitcoin and give people a soft path into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying stable coins and potentially even like a gold pegged Bitcoin, these type of ideas are probably the bridge to adoption.
It's things that people understand today. And they get to understand Bitcoin and they say, oh, well, I'm using this on a day-to-day basis. Maybe I should keep some. Maybe I should start using it as well.
And that allows you to capture the value at a price point that's, you're more familiar as well. People aren't used to dealing with fractions of a cent.
Exactly.
Conceptually.
I agree.
So if I reached out to Peter Schiff, would you like to come back on the show and talk to him about tokenizing gold on Bitcoin? Because that's something that he would love to do.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. It's an area I've done a lot of discussion with in the past. Ironically, people say that one of the reasons I'm not SN is because in 2011 I had blog posts about tokenizing gold. What they didn't realize at the time is in 2009, Satoshi had extensive communications with Marty Melby about tokenizing gold on Bitcoin. Funny thing, that.
So that idea didn't go anywhere, it seems.
No, because Satoshi called all these people Neanderthals, which are fairly much the current core type people now. And yeah, the Neanderthals have taken over.
I think poor Neanderthals. I think you're doing them an injustice.
I don't know.
I don't know, the level of economic sophistication or like vision, economic or social visionary or something like that from those guys is like a dead weight.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks once again, Craig, and it's been an absolute pleasure getting to chat to you. I hope your farming continues to thrive and you get on top of your caterpillars, and look forward to seeing what else you're producing and following your Substack. And anytime if you want to come and say g'day again, we'd love to have you on.
No problem.